They'd met as teens, but were in it for the long haul.
Hey, miss, do you need some help?
They were together for a long time.
They were building a life together.
They had their children, the picket fence, that fairy tale life.
Until a brutal attack tore it all apart.
She's got a stab wound to the middle chest.
She had scratches. She had bruises.
Stay ready.
It was quite a struggle.
The investigation suggests a love triangle gone wrong.
Do you think she's dating anybody else?
It's possible.
There have been rumors.
But is it her longtime boyfriend?
There was some jealous anger there.
Things have not been great between them.
Was it the new man in her life?
He recently got out of jail.
They were together that day.
She told him that she was done.
Or was it even more complicated than detectives imagined?
DNA was found under her fingernails.
Someone they never heard of.
I'm trying to give you an opportunity to explain.
What are you doing?
June 11th, 2016. It's a few hours before sunrise in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a blue-collar city of 600,000.
It was a manufacturing city for many, many years. A lot of breweries and a lot of factories.
It's sort of a small Chicago. It grew out of German and Polish roots.
After the war, a lot of African Americans came here looking for better opportunities.
But like a lot of the Rust Belt, those opportunities eventually faded.
Once the manufacturing left, many people who had skills could not find work.
Crime was and continues to be a problem in the city of Milwaukee.
Our homicides have increased, our shootings have increased, stabbings. It actually got the nickname Killwalkie.
And just after 4 o'clock that morning, the city's reputation hits too close to home for Antonio Sharp.
Stay ready.
Antonio calls 911 and reports that his friend, Danielle, has been stabbed.
It's bad, real bad.
Antonio was panicked. He is, at that moment, trying to prevent her from bleeding out.
Put pressure on that. I don't know. D.
It was a pretty bad scene right from the get-go.
So, come on.
We're using the towel to try to stop the bleeding from the chest.
Stay with me, D. Put pressure on that. Stay with me.
They just try to do whatever they can to keep her alive.
But time is running out.
She's lost a tremendous amount of blood.
Please hurry. Please.
26-year-old Alexandria Danielle Taylor lived every day to the fullest.
She was a fun-loving person who loved life.
She had amazing friends, very full life.
But it hadn't always been easy.
Danielle's teenage years were full of drama.
Danielle had a rebellious streak. She got into it with her mom often.
She was in and out of the house. Unfortunately, she was couch surfing.
It was while she was between places that the teen met Rick Ramsey.
Danielle was about 15 when she met Rick.
Hey, miss.
He was about 19 at the time.
You need some help?
And he'd experienced hardship in his youth as well.
His parents were addicts, and he had been in foster care.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Are you sure? You shouldn't be out here so late.
I don't have anywhere to go tonight.
Rick offered her a place to crash.
To Danielle, his chivalry was attractive.
No problem.
They formed a relationship, and eventually they become an official couple. She was enamored by the fact that he was more mature than she was.
It's typically appealing for young girls to date older men because of their status and because of how mature they are and the stability that they might have.
And a steady relationship with Danielle was equally good for Rick.
Danielle encouraged him to get off the streets and find a job.
She was probably a little more mature than most of the girls her age.
And with Danielle's encouragement, Rick put his days on the streets behind him.
They also started a family.
In 2008, they welcomed their first daughter. And then 6 years later, they had another child.
And by 2016, it looked as if this young couple had built a beautiful life together.
They had been together for 11 years.
They really felt like they had it all.
There is a lot of love there. They were hoping that they would have an opportunity to grow old together.
But now those hopes appear to be in mortal danger.
Her friend Antonio calls 911 and reports that she has been stabbed.
There's blood everywhere.
It's a chaotic scene. Someone is literally dying while you're awaiting what seems like a very long time for the police to arrive.
When first responders arrive, they find Antonio and his sister still holding pressure to Danielle's wound.
They're desperately trying to save her.
As first responders take over, an officer arranges for Antonio and his sister to be transported down to the station.
That way they can get their formal statement on what exactly happened.
Because the police are now investigating a homicide.
After a few moments of trying to revive Danielle, the EMTs pronounced her dead at the scene.
The young lady happened to be past medical attention.
But as first responders exit to make way for detectives, a car comes barreling down the street.
This car comes to a quick screeching stop.
She's not supposed to be here. Hey, where's Danielle? Hold on. Where is she? Hey, where is she?
He's trying his best to barge his way past the cops.
He's crossing the do not cross tape line, running through towards the residence where the victim is still lying.
The man is Danielle's boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
He is belligerent, he's upset, he's not responding to officers' commands to calm down, to stay out of the crime scene.
The officer has to physically restrain him.
And he says that she is not supposed to be here.
She's not supposed to be here.
26-year-old Danielle Taylor was happily raising 2 daughters with her longtime boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
They had been together for 11 years and had a happy home, the picket fence, at Fairytale life.
But now, EMTs have just pronounced Danielle dead inside her friend Antonio Sharp's home.
Soon after, a car screeches up to the scene. Danielle's boyfriend, Rick, jumps out of the car and crosses the crime scene tape.
Where's Danielle? Hold on. Where is she?
The officer has to physically restrain him from continuing to try to push by.
Where's Danielle?
But Rick is still screaming, yelling, refusing to calm down.
Eventually, Rick is placed under arrest for disorderly conduct.
Go ahead and get him down to the station.
I figured the best thing to do was take him into custody, get him in the car, and get him away from the scene to get things calmed down.
I need to see my girl.
While Rick is taken to the station, detectives turn their attention to the crime scene.
Outside of the house, there are 2 large pools of blood, but no distinct trail that would lead the police to believe whatever happened to her likely happened at the house.
Near the blood pools, they see a single earring, as well as a woman's wig and a wallet. The wallet contains Danielle's ID and her credit cards.
Not far away, detectives find a broken blade from a knife.
On the knife, there is inscribed stainless and china, which leads the police to believe that it is part of a kitchen set.
Then the detectives head inside the home.
The victim is on the living room floor. She's got a stab wound to the middle chest. She's got a stab wound to her left temple.
Since the killer left Danielle's wallet on the ground outside, detectives suspect they're dealing with a crime of passion.
This wasn't just someone stabbing her, taking her purse, and running away. This was somebody who took some time to inflict some pain.
She had scratches. She had a black eye. She had bruises up and down her body.
She has a tear to her earlobe, like an earring was torn from it.
Looking at all of the circumstances, it was an emotional, violent altercation that occurred.
Hoping someone may have witnessed the struggle, detectives begin knocking on neighbors' doors.
It's still before dawn, and most people say they were asleep. They didn't hear or see anything. But there is one woman who said that she left her bedroom window open and said that she was awakened by an argument.
She could hear an altercation that was clearly between a man and a woman.
I tried to ignore it.
But then she heard a woman scream.
At that point, that she got out of bed and she went to go look at her window to see what was going on.
But when she did that, she didn't see anything.
She waited for a moment, but she didn't hear anything else.
So she ignored it and went back to sleep.
But while she didn't see the fight that preceded the stabbing, there may still be a witness.
She has a Ring doorbell camera. It's right across the street, so there's a lot of potential for evidence off of that.
Man, would you mind if we got a copy of the footage from your doorbell camera?
Of course. Can I email it to you?
Yeah. You have a good morning.
Thank you.
After speaking with the neighbor, detectives return to the station.
They need to get statements from Danielle's friend Antonio, his sister, and Danielle's boyfriend, Rick.
The detectives start with Rick.
He's calmer than he was at the scene, but he is very emotional.
I know y'all got a lot of questions for me, but I got some questions too.
I don't know what happened. My girl didn't tell me nothing. As soon as I got to the scene, I freaked out.
Okay.
I just want to know what happened.
Rick is saying, I was just with her at 3 a.m.
That's just an hour before Antonio's 911 call.
I met her at the gas station on Addison and Keith.
Rick admits that things had been rocky between him and Danielle, so she had recently moved out.
According to Rick, it was only temporary.
She said she needed some space to get away from me for a while.
But he says that when they met up at the gas station earlier that morning, they'd gotten into a fight.
According to Rick, they got into an argument over money.
If you was to get my phone and get her phone, you would see it in all the safes.
He says she drained his bank account a few days ago.
How much money was that about?
It was about $600.
And that was like paycheck money?
Yeah, that's my paycheck money.
He was very upset. He wanted to talk to her and get his money back.
She know we got bills to pay.
According to Rick, that's why he'd asked her to meet him at the gas station.
But he said when she did, they soon fell into an argument.
It was like a heated moment because we were both trying to explain ourselves.
He was a little intoxicated. And according to Rick, when Danielle got there, he could tell that Danielle was a little intoxicated too.
I took her purse from her because she still had a bottle of liquor in her purse. I'm like, man, put this down. You don't need this.
This gets Danielle very angry.
Hey, it's mine.
And according to Rick, their heated argument had turned violent.
That was when she snagged me.
Detectives investigating Danielle Taylor's murder have learned that barely an hour before someone stabbed her to death, she had gotten into an explosive argument with her boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
Rick says he was trying to wrestle Danielle's purse away from her to keep her from drinking anymore.
They get into a struggle and shouting match in front of the gas station.
He says she gave him a black eye.
Hey, it's mine.
Rick managed to keep the purse and take it to his car.
And Danielle stormed off.
He followed her and was able to catch up with her.
Come here. Where do you think you're going? Come here.
It's at this point that Danielle tries fighting him again. So they get into another altercation.
She had grabbed my face, boom. And then when she grabbed it, she pulled my dreads out.
He said he tried to defend himself, but she scratches his arm.
And he says that while they were fighting, a police car pulled up next to them.
They was coming east, and then they like, yeah, they put the little sirens on.
They came up and sort of broke it up.
What the hell's going on? No problem, officer.
I wasn't afraid to talk to officers. I didn't know. I know I didn't do nothing wrong.
Break it up and go home.
The policeman suggests that they both go their separate ways and call it a day.
And as far as the patrol officer was concerned, that's what happened with Rick and Danielle.
She walked that way, and I walked towards my car.
But Rick admits that after the police pulled off, he tried to follow Danielle.
I tried to hit the blocks to see if I can see her.
Rick did not want to let it go. He wanted to talk out this issue with Danielle.
But Rick says that after circling the area a couple times, he was unable to find her.
I didn't know where she went. So I said, it. And I went home.
Only he didn't stay there long.
I went upstairs to my room. I looked in my room, looked at my bed. My bed empty. So I'm like, I get in my car.
He decides he's going to go over to his sister's house.
And once he got there, he was greeted with horrific news.
His sister allegedly gets a call saying that Danielle has gotten into some sort of trouble and she has been stabbed.
I'm like, she can't be gone because I was just with her. Like, we was just talking.
Rick says that as soon as he heard that Danielle had been stabbed, he'd race to Antonio's house.
I made all type of illegal turns into red lights just to get there.
He says he had no idea what happened to Danielle after she left the gas station.
But is he telling the truth?
Rick admitted that he went looking for Danielle after their argument.
And he went out of his way to explain his injuries. So could the altercation outside the gas station be a cover story?
You guys have had fights before?
We haven't had a fight in God knows how long. I say over a year and a half.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
That's ancient history.
Yeah.
And now detectives want to know, if Rick didn't kill Danielle, who did?
Do you think she's dating anybody else or seeing anybody else on the side?
It's possible.
There have been rumors spreading around that she was, in fact, in another relationship. She was cheating.
And Rick admits that was another reason he'd asked Danielle to meet him at the gas station early that morning.
Before I was trying to get something out of her too, at the same time, which was the truth.
Right.
One of the motives for him going to see her was to see if there was any truth to these rumors.
And he wanted information as to what the status of their relationship was going to be.
She basically has left him. He does not want her to leave.
But according to Rick, that doesn't mean he had a motive for murder.
I know y'all trying to figure out if I killed my girl or not. But I did not kill my girl, man.
Despite Rick's protests of innocence, detectives decide to hold him in custody.
He's booked on disorderly conduct charges.
They take his clothes to see if there is any DNA evidence on his clothes that would connect him to the murder of Danielle Taylor.
Then the detectives move on to Danielle's friend, Antonio Sharp.
They want to get him into the interrogation room to get a formal statement from him.
He was the first individual to see her after the altercation.
Also, detectives suspect Antonio may be more than just Danielle's friend.
According to Rick, there had been rumors that Danielle had been hooking up with someone else.
Detectives wonder if he had found out that she left to meet with Rick.
And if so, had that made him angry?
When detectives sit down with Antonio, he doesn't appear angry.
He was obviously distraught and upset over the incident.
Can't believe this happened.
He says he wants to do whatever he can to find out who killed Danielle.
Okay, so how long have you known Danielle?
I've known her forever.
Antonio was a childhood friend of Miss Taylor.
So you're just friends?
Well,
He admits that he's always had feelings for Danielle.
But he says that over the years, they'd lost touch.
He recently got out of jail himself on a burglary charge.
I looked her up when I got out, but she was with somebody else.
Even though he's never met Rick, he knows that he's Danielle's long-term boyfriend. And he knows that they have 2 kids together.
But that hadn't stopped the old friends from reconnecting.
They were just friendly at first, but then he learned that she too had feelings for him.
I thought you knew.
Well, I know now.
And that's when their relationship turned sexual.
Were you worried that Rick would find out?
I was.
But according to Antonio, Danielle wasn't.
She told him that she was done with Rick.
She just wanted to get out.
Antonio Sharp, the man who called 911 and reported that Danielle Taylor had been stabbed, says the 26-year-old mother of 2 had been planning to leave her boyfriend, Rick Ramsey.
Antonio tells detectives that Danielle wanted to leave Rick for good.
What about Rick?
Antonio supposedly knows this because she had been dating him behind Rick's back.
However, Antonio claims that he wasn't the only reason Danielle wanted to leave Rick.
Antonio says that Rick beat her up regularly.
You ever see him hit her?
No, but that's what she said.
He said she kept complaining about Rick and the violence that was in the home.
Antonio claims that there have been times she has had bruises and marks.
So she'd left Rick and was staying with Antonio and his sister.
Antonio had been staying with his sister since he'd been released from jail.
But as detectives know, leaving an abusive relationship can be really scary.
Is that what happened in Danielle's case?
If he had found out that she was trying to move on, it would have pushed him over the edge.
Hoping to learn more, detectives ask Antonio to walk them through the events leading up to Danielle's murder.
He's saying that they were together that day.
They had a few friends over and had been drinking out on the porch.
Antonio says that once the party wound down at around 10 o'clock, he'd gone inside.
He ends up falling asleep on the couch.
Danielle woke him up sometime later.
Hey, Antonio. What? I'm about to go out for a little bit. Can we pick that up?
Antonio says he fell back to sleep and didn't wake up until about 4 a.m.
He hears a knock at the door.
When he opened it, he was shocked to see Danielle standing there.
Danielle! Oh my God!
Her wig's gone and her face was splattered with blood.
She falls in his arms. He lays her down.
Hey, what happened?
That's when he noticed the stab above her chest.
Who did this to you?
He kept trying to ask who did this, but by this time, she was unresponsive.
Antonio says that by then, his sister had come into the room.
Get my phone, go get my phone. D, come on, say something.
He begins calling 911. He runs and gets a towel to try to stop the bleeding from the chest.
Here, put pressure on it. Hello, it's bad. It's real bad.
And then the police finally arrive.
On the surface, Antonio's story sounds genuine.
Antonio is crying and obviously in great distress.
Or could they be tears of guilt?
Detectives wonder if he had found out that she left to meet with Rick.
Maybe he was waiting up for her when she got back and a confrontation ensued.
To see if they can verify Antonio's story, the detectives turn to his sister.
She confirms that she, Antonio, and Danielle had been drinking on the porch.
And she says that when she went to bed around 11, her brother was asleep on the couch.
Did you see or hear Danielle leave?
No. Next thing I heard was Antonio screaming downstairs, so I ran down there to see what was going on.
And when she got downstairs, Danielle was already collapsed on the floor, bleeding.
Did Danielle ever tell you that Rick was abusing her?
No, but I knew he was.
She has had bruises and marks. It was hard not to notice.
And she swears that her brother could not have been the source of those bruises.
She says right off the bat, my brother had nothing to do with this murder. And there's no way with how much he cared about Danielle that he would have ever hurt her.
But while she was happy for her brother, she worried what Rick would do if he found out about Antonio's relationship with Danielle.
She thinks Rick found out about the new relationship from a mutual friend and wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to do something about it.
That's all we have for now. Appreciate you coming in.
Had Rick found out? And had he done something about it? Detectives suspect the truth lies in the surveillance video.
Hey, come take a look at this.
In addition to the neighbor's doorbell cam, the detectives also requested security footage from the gas station, where Danielle met with Rick.
Reviewing the footage appears to confirm Rick's story.
He was at that gas station where he did say that he met up with her before the homicide happened.
In the footage, it's clear the two are in a heated argument.
There's even footage of the police officer coming past and sending them in their separate directions.
After the officer leaves, they see that Rick follows Danielle and goes in the same direction. So far, it all fits with what Rick had told them.
According to Rick, he couldn't find Danielle, so he gave up and went home.
But when they review the doorbell camera footage from Danielle's neighbor, it tells a different story.
On the video, the detectives see Danielle walk up the street towards the house.
And not 1 minute after, we see a figure follow behind her.
Someone who detectives are pretty sure is Rick Ramsey.
That's what's called damning evidence.
Rick, what are you doing?
When questioned about the murder of his girlfriend, Danielle Taylor, Rick Ramsey has admitted that he had an altercation with the 26-year-old mother of two less than an hour before she was fatally stabbed.
The police had broken up the fight, and Rick said he went home afterwards.
But when they pull up the footage from the neighbor's house, it's obvious that he had been lying.
The video shows Danielle walking up to her friend Antonio's home. But it also reveals that someone is following her.
Someone who detectives are pretty sure is Rick Ramsey.
He has one hand behind his back, which leads police to suspect that he might be carrying something.
On the sidewalk in front of the house, Danielle and Rick have a brief confrontation.
Then they both disappear out of view.
Then, a few minutes later, Rick comes back into view.
Rick is walking away from the house and is no longer carrying anything.
After watching the video, detectives bring Rick back to the interrogation room.
At first, he sticks to his original story.
Everything that I'm seeing right now is what happened.
But then the detectives tell Rick that they have video that shows him following Danielle to Antonio's house.
How do you explain that? How do we explain video?
I don't know.
They do what we call a coming to Jesus moment.
It has little effect on Rick.
I really don't know where else to go. You don't remember it? That's your story, and it's yours. You can stick with it.
Then they haul Rick back to his cell. But after another 24 hours behind bars, Rick's story starts to change.
He's brought back into an interview room yet again.
He says, you know what? It is possible that I found her and that we did have another argument. I can't remember much because, remember, I was drunk.
Something come over me, like something get into me, and I'm like, did I black out and do something?
You began to think about the consequences of your behaviors, and you began to try to develop some rationalizations.
Did the devil come into me and start controlling me like that for real? And then to get out of my head, I wanted to be found, man. I wanted to be found. I feel a lot better when it's found.
I guarantee it.
I feel a lot better when it's found.
As he's confronted with the counters to his lies, you're going to see acceptance.
My brain has been rattling, man. It's been rattling. Because my girl gone, man. And she not coming back. And I want her to rest in peace. I want her family to have peace.
Now that they can finally get some of these things that they're holding in off of their chest, you almost become that priest that you come and make a confession to.
I gotta get it out. I gotta get it out. Jim, I killed my girl, Jim.
I know.
I killed my girl, man. I killed my girl.
I know.
He did say, I killed her, and then he finally got into the description of how it happened.
He admits that he did, in fact, follow her.
He ends up finding Miss Taylor at the residence where this happened.
Rick says he parked down the street.
Then, he says he began searching through Danielle's purse.
Remember, he kept the purse after the police made them go in their separate directions.
He was looking for the knife he knew Danielle always carried with her for protection.
This was a kitchen knife.
He decides to take it with him when he goes to confront her.
Rick, what you doing?
Is this where he lives? Do you lie to me?
At some point, he says he grabbed her arm.
What happens next?
Then she swung at me. That's when I stabbed her.
He said the anger wasn't so much of her cheating, the anger was of her not providing him with the truth. There's still some struggle. He said arms are flaring around and all that. And then that's when he does the second stab.
Do you remember the knife breaking?
And he claims not to know what he did with the handle of the knife either.
Somewhere, different world.
Even after the stab, all he can remember is not being remorseful, but being angry.
After that, I remember being in the car.
Coupled with the video evidence, Rick's confession is all that the police need to secure a conviction.
Mr. Ramsey was charged with the reckless homicide of his girlfriend.
But Rick decides to retain a lawyer. And the lawyer immediately comes in with questions about this alleged confession.
These interrogation tactics are empirically known to be very effective at getting confessions, but they're also known to get false confessions.
And when detectives get the DNA results back from the crime lab, it appears that Rick's attorney may have a point.
A man's DNA was found under Danielle's fingernails, but it is not the DNA of Rick Ramsey.
It's also not a match for Danielle's lover, Antonio Sharp.
Which means that there is a possible third suspect out there.
With a taped confession and surveillance footage that appears to show him at the scene of the crime, police and prosecutors are confident that 30-year-old Rick Ramsey is responsible for Danielle Taylor's murder.
That would be consistent with what the evidence shows.
They believe that this is an open and shut case.
Until the DNA test results turn the entire case on its head.
The evidence found under Danielle's fingernails does not match Rick Ramsey. And it doesn't match Antonio Sharp.
The results match for a third man, someone they never heard of.
His name is Kenneth Arnold.
It just so happened that he was incarcerated on another charge.
So detectives are able to bring him in for questioning.
We want to show you some pictures of some people that you might know. Okay?
Sure, go ahead.
They start off by showing him Danielle's photo, but Kenneth insists that he's never seen her before.
Never ever seen her. Never.
The detectives know that's a lie.
We found evidence of your DNA. We're trying to give you an opportunity to explain because there might be a reasonable explanation.
Nonetheless, Kenneth insists that he has no idea how his DNA got there.
Your skin underneath her fingernails, like if she would scratch you.
That seems to ring a bell for Kenneth.
I've been having sex with girls around here.
Kenneth is known to be a little bit of a player.
It's kind of crazy. There's been a lot of sex murders. Like a lot is like 5? 10? Probably like 30. 30? Yeah, 30 different women.
He says it is entirely possible that Danielle was one of them.
Question is, had he done more than sleep with her?
Did you kill this woman? No. Did you stab her? No.
Despite the presence of his DNA, detectives think he's telling the truth.
They have no other evidence. There's no other motive or direct connection to Kenneth.
And he doesn't appear on any of the surveillance videos.
But the fact that it's Kenneth's DNA under Danielle's fingernails does put the prosecutors in an awkward position. One the defense will no doubt try to exploit.
The obvious argument is if he was the murderer and they engaged in a struggle, the victim may have clawed at her assailant and got his DNA under her fingernails.
When Rick goes on trial for murder in September of 2022, the prosecutors begin by focusing on his motive.
He found out that she's cheating on him.
And on the night of the murder, he confronted her about it.
Is this where he lives? Ooh. Don't lie to me.
He couldn't let her go.
He stabs her in the chest.
It was an emotional, violent altercation.
He stabbed her again, above her left temple.
And the prosecutors claim to have plenty of proof.
They presented the evidence of the fight earlier that day, which clearly occurred.
They show the surveillance video.
Most of all, they have Rick's confession. But when it's the defense's turn, they do their best to cast doubt on that confession.
During the interview, law enforcement repeatedly tell him that they have a video of him committing the murder. That was a lie. Law enforcement did not have a clear video of anything. The next line of attack for the defense was to get an expert witness to talk about false confessions. We did have our expert witness talk about techniques employed by law enforcement, sleep deprivation, lying about certain evidence they have, and pushing an individual towards the narrative that law enforcement is trying to get from that interview.
But that's all just the lead up to the defense's main point, that Danielle had Kenneth Arnold's DNA under her fingernails when she died.
He told police he didn't know the victim, and then said, well, I may have slept with her, but I didn't know who she was. And nothing was followed up about that.
But the jury, with all the evidence, and especially the security footage, they just aren't buying it.
They find Rick guilty of murder.
He's sentenced to 30 years in prison.
If he completes his 30 years, he's still going to have another 12 years of probation, which means once he's out, he's still going to be monitored for 12 years.
Justice has been served. But that does little to lessen the tragedy of Danielle's death.
Because not only was there one life taken, there were more lives ruined from this particular instance.
Her daughters, obviously, they lost their mother, but they've lost their dad, who, whether he's a good man or not, they obviously love.
Danielle will never get to see her daughters grow up. They'll never get to experience those important moments with their mother.
This is a absolutely tragic murder of an absolutely innocent individual who didn't obviously in any manner deserve her final outcome.
February 16th, 1995, Detroit, Michigan. The bleak winter day seems to mirror the hard times that have fallen upon the once thriving industrial city.
The city changed from a factory city where there was money, where there was a great economy, to a time where people were suffering. We have a lot of factories that closed, a lot of hospitals that closed. There was drugs that entered the city. So that brought about crime, that brought about violence.
On the north side of town, 28-year-old Nora Douglas is getting ready to go to work when she notices her neighbor's door wide open.
She thought that was odd, so she looked inside.
When Nora entered the condo, she was shocked by what she found.
She sees her neighbor, 27-year-old Jocelyn Payne, laying in her own blood. She's terrified, scared, bewildered, unsure of what was going on. And at that moment, she knew she needed to call 911 for help.
Upon receiving Nora's panicked call, first responders race to the scene. Minutes later, they arrive at the condo.
When they walk in, they are shocked. Police could tell that this woman suffered from a brutal attack. It's a gruesome scene. There's blood everywhere. That's just horrible.
As Detroit police begin investigating this callous crime, they'll uncover a dark, twisted tale where one woman's desire for freedom entrapped her into a toxic love for her man and drove her to the point of no return.
She wanted him to feel as though she could handle everything. She can do whatever he asked her to do.
18-year-old Tanika Lynch had a modest upbringing, but that didn't stop her from dreaming of something more.
Tanika grew up very poor. She had to rely on herself from a very young age.
On top of that, her father wasn't around, and the only male figure she really knew was her mom's boyfriend.
He was very abusive, so this caused a great strain for her and her mom.
Tanika used her creativity as an outlet for the struggles she faced.
Growing up, I was very creative. I drew, I wrote poetry. I was good at a lot of things.
But what Tanika wanted more than anything else in the world was to become a Hollywood actress.
I always wanted to be famous. I wanted to move to Hollywood. And I just had the big dream of seeing myself in fur coats and diamond rings and having a paparazzi follow me around.
She had a desire to succeed. She wanted to get out of Detroit and make something of herself.
But before Tanika could accomplish her dreams, she needed to save up the money to do so.
Tanika needed to find a means for earning money and saving money so that she can make her transition to LA happen.
She basically was ready to sacrifice and do whatever it took to get her where she wanted to be.
In the summer of 1994, Tanika's friend introduced her to someone who could help her make the money she would need for her big move. 38-year-old Drew Glover.
Drew was a drug dealer. When I was growing up, I always heard his name, but I had never seen him. He was like a celebrity back then. He's the big guy, and he only showed his face to certain people.
Tanika sees this man who is well put together, he's professional, and he offers her a job. So she jumps on it right away. She accepts. He talked proper, clear English. He wasn't hood or ghetto. He was a nice-looking guy. This man that I seen was totally like a movie star. I was just in awe.
Drew put Tanika straight to work, delivering drugs to his customers.
Tanika is young. She has nothing to lose. So she's willing to do anything to get out of Detroit. She took his word. She didn't ask any questions. And she just delivered the packages as she was told.
Tanika quickly became Drew's hardest worker and was soon bringing in $700 a week.
That was a lot of money for a girl who came from a poor upbringing. I was living like I was an adult. I had more things than most women that's my age now could accumulate in a lifetime with him.
And the more time Tanika spent with Drew, the more smitten she became with her handsome boss.
At first, I just knew I was out of his league, but I still had a little like baby crush, in awe.
Here's this man that people practically revered and feared, and that was an aphrodisiac for Tanika.
She both loved it and was thrilled by it. She grew more and more infatuated.
Tanika eventually made her feelings known to Drew.
And the more she puts herself out there, the more he's receptive.
He was very surprised and amazed at my intelligence and how mature I was to be the age that I was. At this point in time, I was just giddy. I was just like, oh my God, I think he really likes me. I'm about to seal the deal. I'm about to be this man's woman.
Despite their vast age difference, the two spent the night together. And from then on, Tanika was Drew's girl.
Me and him started getting serious after that. We started having sex on a regular basis, and he basically was calling me his girlfriend. He became more than just her boss. He was her lover. He was her friend. He showered Tanika with the attention that she craved since she was a young girl. She thought that was love.
Tanika's home life was unstable, and Drew was the one who put the pieces together. He made her foundation solid.
She didn't have the love of her mom or her dad there. She didn't have someone supporting her. She had to always depend on herself. When she found Drew, she thought that she had hit the lottery.
But little did Tanika know that her love for Drew would soon drag her down a violent and blood-stained path. One that would ultimately cost her everything she ever hoped for herself.
She completely forgot all about her own hopes and dreams.
She really just lost control. She couldn't believe what she had done.
February 16th, 1995. Detroit police have just arrived on the scene of a brutal murder where 26-year-old Jocelyn Payne has been found dead.
The victim's body was found with 12 stab wounds and a gunshot to the back of the head.
Police begin to process the crime scene and search for clues.
Officers, they initially note that this looks like a robbery gone wrong.
The apartment was trashed. Everything was just ransacked. It was things knocked over and just really looked chaotic.
In the closet, there was a safe and it was empty.
They are convinced that there's something valuable that has been taken from the premises.
They're trying to figure out what it was and who could have done it.
But soon, police will learn this was no ordinary robbery. When detectives dig deeper, they'll get a break in the case that points them in the direction of an unlikely suspect. A young woman who was willing to do whatever it took to prove her loyalty and love to her man.
She wanted to do anything at that point to make him understand that she was down for him. He said, you better be careful what you ask for, little girl, because I'll take you on a ride and you'll never get off.
In the summer of 1994, Tanika Lynch thought she had found the man of her dreams in her handsome boss, Drew Glover.
Drew was my everything. He gave me things that I had never thought I would ever have.
Despite their 20-year age gap, the working relationship between Tanika and Drew had turned into a steamy romance, and Tanika was all in.
She is no longer thinking about, sailing off to Los Angeles to become an actress.
It was intense. Just this love that she's never experienced before. She never wanted to leave his side.
Little did Tanika know that her obsessive devotion to her man would ultimately cost her everything and drive her to commit horrendous sins, all in the name of love.
The only person who meant something to me was this man. And that's all I wanted to do was please him.
February 16th, 1995, 10 a.m. Detroit police are investigating the grisly murder of 26-year-old Jocelyn Payne. From the state of the body, authorities estimate she had been killed roughly 4 hours earlier.
She had been stabbed 12 times and shot in the head.
The apartment, it's a wreck. It's ransacked. Stuff is everywhere.
Initially, first responders suspected a robbery gone wrong. But considering the callous nature of this crime, detectives surmised Jocelyn must have known her killer.
It looked so bloody and brutal. There was no way the police could believe that it was not personal.
They realized she was executed.
Detectives hope Jocelyn's neighbor, Nora Douglas, may have seen something or someone that could provide police with their first lead.
The detectives decide to go back to the neighbor who called 911 to see if she can shed any additional insight into this case.
And in speaking with Nora, detectives are immediately in luck. Nora tells them Jocelyn had recently broken up with her boyfriend, Sean Little.
The neighbor admits to the police that Sean had been running with some pretty tough crowds.
He had a dangerous rep around town.
Quite naturally, the police are now wondering whether Jocelyn's murder has anything to do with her boyfriend.
Detectives started looking into him immediately.
After returning to the station, detectives run a background check on Sean Little to see what they can dig up.
To some of their surprise, Sean Little is already under investigation by the feds. He is supposedly a part of a large drug trafficking ring.
Detectives learn that federal agents have not yet been able to track down Sean. He's seemingly gone into hiding. But they have arrested the alleged kingpin of the drug ring, 38-year-old Drew Glover.
Drew was busted for possession of cocaine just a couple of months ago.
What they have found is that the victim's boyfriend, Sean Little, he works for the drug lord, Drew Glover.
Drew was a very dangerous man, and sometimes he would get Sean to do his dirty work. Everyone knew that if Drew got involved, it could get deadly.
Could Jocelyn's murder have had something to do with this seemingly violent drug ring that her ex-boyfriend was a part of? Before detectives can really begin digging into this theory, a witness comes forward with new information that will turn the case on its head.
After Jocelyn's murder hit the news, one of the guys in her neighborhood thought of something that might have helped the investigation.
The neighbor tells detectives that on the day of the murder, he noticed a young woman sprinting from the building.
She had fur coats and a bunch of other stuff, and he thought that was kind of odd.
Initially, he didn't think much of it, but now that Jocelyn's murder is an issue, he realizes that she may have had something to do with it.
Detectives ask if he has any idea who the young woman was.
The more he thought about it, he realized that the woman he saw running was Jocelyn's old roommate, Tanika Lynch.
The officers are really intrigued now. How does Tanika fit into all of this? What was her role and why?
When detectives begin looking into Tanika Lynch, they immediately find something else that piques their interest about the 18-year-old.
Detectives find out that Tanika's been visiting Kingpin Drew Glover while he was in jail.
They see the logs. They know that she has visited him multiple times.
They even found that there was a phone call made to Drew within hours before Jocelyn's murder. At this point, detectives, they doubt that this is a mere coincidence.
Police head to the address Tanika last used on the jail visitation logs, a motel on the north side of town. After getting her room number from the front desk, they make their move.
They order her to come outside and surrender. Officers did not know if Tanika was going to be armed and dangerous.
After the brutal nature of the murder scene, officers don't know what to expect.
Fortunately, though, Tanika is more cooperative and more demure than police expected.
As the detectives tell Tanika to raise her hands, she complies without any hesitation.
I was just in complete shock and just scared to death, not knowing what's going to happen next, what kind of evidence they got on me.
As Tanika is en route to the station, police begin a search of the room.
What they find is $1,600 in a bag and 2 fur coats.
What they didn't find was the butcher knife or the gun that was used in the murder.
Investigators bag the evidence and head back to the station to question Tanika. Given her timid disposition, detectives have a hard time seeing the 18-year-old as a ruthless killer.
This situation confused the officers. They could not believe that someone so young could have done something so violent.
According to Tanika, she didn't.
She's denying everything that the police are accusing her of. She doesn't know anything about the murder.
Detectives still have a hunch that this whole situation is connected to Drew Glover's drug ring somehow.
Detectives let Tanika know that they know that Jocelyn's ex-boyfriend, Sean, works for Mr. Glover. And they also know that Tanika had spoken with Mr. Glover hours before Jocelyn's murder.
The detectives were asking me about Drew, our conversations on the phone.
Tanika explains Drew is her boyfriend, and that's the only reason they've been in frequent contact.
They wanted me to implicate him in any type of way and tie him into the situation, and I wasn't going to do it, period.
Detectives decide to try another approach to get Tanika to talk, and appeal to her compassionate side.
Police then showed Tanika the pictures of Jocelyn's lifeless body in the crime scene.
It's a total nightmare. There's blood everywhere.
And that's the game changer.
Tanika starts to break down at this point.
Tanika, she offers her confession. I killed Jocelyn.
It just grew on my conscience and it just ate me up inside.
But detectives are surprised when Tanika refuses to say anything more about what happened and completely shuts down.
Tanika admits that she killed Jocelyn, but she refuses to explain her motives. She refused to tell detectives how it went down, and she also refused to tell detectives why she did it.
In search of their missing motive, detectives decide to pay Drew Glover a visit at the Wayne County Jail, where he's currently incarcerated. They still want to know, why was Tanika in contact with him just an hour prior to killing Jocelyn?
Detectives asked Drew, did he know anything about Jocelyn's death?
He denies any knowledge of Jocelyn's murder, having any hand in it or any of it.
They also asked him what his relationship is with Tanika Lynch. And he even denies knowing Tanika.
That's when detectives present Drew with the visitation logs and call logs.
Detectives confront Drew with evidence showing that he has had constant contact with Tanika.
Finally, Drew breaks down to detectives. He says, all right, yes, I know Tanika.
Drew tells detectives that she's just a girl that's obsessed with him and she doesn't mean anything to him.
The depiction that he paints of them is that she's just a girl who can't get enough of him, but he has nothing for her. She's totally irrelevant to him.
In fact, according to Drew, he's in a committed relationship with another woman.
He drops the bomb that he's married.
He reveals he's been married for years.
Drew paints this picture like he's a happily married man, and he has no clue as to why Tanika is obsessed with him.
Detectives wonder if Tanika knows that her boyfriend is actually married to another woman. Perhaps this new information could be used to get her to turn on Drew and admit if he had anything to do with Jocelyn's murder.
He said, "Don't you know you messing with a married man?" And I'm like, he's not married.
Her whole world shatters. She is lost and confused and growing in her rage.
Of Jocelyn Payne. But investigators are still missing a motive.
She refused to tell detectives how it went down, and she also refused to tell detectives why she did it.
Detectives believe drug kingpin 38-year-old Drew Glover may have had something to do with the crime.
Tanika has been speaking with Drew. She has been visiting Drew, and she even spoke with him a few hours before the murder.
Tanika says that Drew is her boyfriend, but she flat out denies Drew's involvement and says he has nothing to do with this, and at the time he was in jail.
But in speaking with Drew, detectives have learned that he doesn't share the same devotion to Tanika. He's actually married to another woman.
He just lets the detectives know that he does casually know Tanika, but he's never dated her. He's happily married, and that Tanika is basically obsessed with him.
Armed with this new information, detectives decide to sit down with Tanika a second time.
They want to see if she'll finally crack when she finds out that her man is not as loyal as she thought.
Detectives let Tanika know that Drew is actually married and has been married for years.
Tanika isn't buying it.
They said, "Don't you know you messing with a married man?" And I'm like, he's not married. I was by his side every day, every single day.
Detectives had to actually pull out a marriage certificate and show Tanika that Drew is officially married.
As Tanika reviews the document, her demeanor changes.
She's shocked. She's thinking, how could the love of my life be married when we've been together?
But if detectives thought this bombshell would get Tanika to turn on her man, they were sorely mistaken.
When I found out he was married, I shed a couple of tears, but I quickly got over it because I didn't care if he had 5 or 6 women as long as I was one. I didn't care. I just wanted this man in my life. He was my everything.
Detectives believe that Drew is the puppet master, but they cannot get Tanika to say anything about Drew.
All detectives could do at this point was send Tanika back to her cell and begin the process of pressing charges.
With Tanika willing to take the fall, they have no way of pinning any charges on Drew.
Detectives are reassured that at least Drew Glover is behind bars and off the street for his possession of drugs charges.
In May of 1995, Tanika Lynch is handed a whopping 60-year sentence for second-degree murder and armed robbery. But over a decade later, after Tanika had spent 15 years behind bars, she begins to have a change of heart.
Tanika was living with a lot of guilt. The guilt was steadily rising.
For years, I had been having dreams. My whole time incarcerated, she came to me in dreams. Every single night, it seemed like, until it just grew on my conscience.
At Tanika's parole hearing in August of 2012, she couldn't bear the weight any longer.
At this point, she's ready to talk. She wants to let it all out.
She's ready to come clean about this murder.
When Drew was arrested on drug charges by federal investigators.
He called me and he told me that he had got arrested, and I broke down crying.
Drew told Tanika he needed someone to protect his product until he got out of jail.
I did what he told me to do, and I went and picked up the drugs, and the street value of it was maybe $25,000 worth, and I held on to it until he gave me further instructions. I didn't give it to anybody.
Not even Drew's former right-hand man, Sean Little.
After Drew was busted, all of his crew was on the run from the Fed, and they all were trying to get in contact with me to get these drugs from me, especially Sean. They had started out the business together back in the 80s.
Sean was furious that Drew left Tanika in charge of the operation. Sean felt as if it should have been him.
Tanika and Drew knew she would need to go into hiding to protect the drugs and herself.
Drew told Tanika that Jocelyn and Sean could not be trusted. Even though she was afraid, she felt that this was her opportunity to let Drew know that she could do this.
Anything that he wanted me to do, I was doing. I didn't care. It was all about him. All I cared about was making him happy.
Tanika packed some bags and fled to a motel room that Drew had arranged for her. But it wasn't long before Jocelyn found out where she was staying.
Jocelyn tells Tanika that she broke up with Sean.
She wanted to get out of this drug business and turn her life around.
Sean wouldn't leave Jocelyn alone, though, until she helped him get the drugs from Tanika.
Jocelyn really tried to convince Tanika that Sean means business. You need to turn over those drugs before someone gets hurt.
But Tanika wasn't hearing it.
I'm telling her, no. Drew told me don't give anything to anybody, so I'm not giving anything to anybody.
That's when Jocelyn gave Tanika an ultimatum.
Jocelyn told Tanika that if she's not going to listen to reason, then Jocelyn's just going to have to give Sean her address so he can come and take care of her himself.
She said, well, I'm going to just tell him where you at.
Tanika was hurt that her friend would betray her, but she had no intentions of betraying Drew.
I said, I thought we was better than that. I thought we was friends. And she said, don't put that friend in it. And when she said that, those were the words right there. And so it started a conflict between me and her.
After the confrontation, Tanika knew Sean would be coming for her. She immediately got Drew on the phone.
She gave him the whole rundown of what Sean and Jocelyn were up to.
I told him that Sean was trying to contact me through Jocelyn in order to get the drugs that he had. And he went ballistic. He went nuts. He, like, don't give anybody anything, you know, and he made it clear that this was his stuff still. It doesn't matter if he's locked up. He's still the boss.
But what Drew would tell Tanika to do next would be the ultimate test of how far she was willing to go for her man.
I never said no to him. Whatever he asked me to do, I would do it.
She never would have imagined that her need to please him would lead her to taking some actions.
Tanika Lynch is finally coming clean about what happened on that fateful day 15 years prior, when she took Jocelyn Payne's life. Tanika has confirmed investigators' suspicions from all those years ago that her drug kingpin boyfriend, Drew Glover, influenced her to commit the crime.
With Drew in jail, all of his associates became sharks. Everyone was trying to get his stash of drugs.
Especially Jocelyn's ex-boyfriend and Drew's former right hand, Sean Little.
To Drew, Jocelyn and Sean's behavior was the ultimate disrespect, and he could not have that.
Drew let Tanika know that Sean and Jocelyn could no longer be trusted, and they had to be handled.
He was like, well, you know what I taught you. You're a smart girl. You know how to handle her on the business tip. And friendship and business was two different things when it came to situations like that. So I already knew what he meant by that.
He was able to mold her, and he knew that he can ask her to do anything and she would be a part of it.
When Drew entrusted Tanika to take care of the situation, she didn't want to let him down. She hid the drugs somewhere safe. Then, armed with a knife and gun, Tanika made a visit to Jocelyn's condo, where she too once lived.
Tanika knew that Sean was laying low from the feds, so this was her opportunity to confront Jocelyn alone.
So when I got to the house, things just went left field. I lost it. It's like I blacked out. It's like a demon took over me.
When Jocelyn tried to fight back, Tanika took out the knife and stabbed her former friend multiple times.
All I could hear was Drew telling me, handle your business. And I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted to take care of the situation in the way that he had taught.
A blood-soaked Jocelyn pulled herself away from Tanika and turned to find a weapon of her own to defend herself. But Tanika was prepared.
Tanika pulls out her gun and shoots Jocelyn in the back of her head.
At that point, the reality of what had just happened set in.
I was in complete shock that I had to do this, handle some business with somebody that I once loved and considered a friend. All of my feelings and emotions was numb. I didn't feel anything. It felt like I was in a story. You know, it just felt unreal.
Tanika admits that she then ransacked the condo to make it look like a robbery gone wrong.
I didn't want to get caught, so I staged it. I went around the house and I started taking things that belonged to her and gathered the weapons up, ran outside and got in my car. I drove to Shane Park and I threw the gun and the knife in the river. Drew taught me how to commit a clean murder.
After her confession, Tanika is clearly shaken up, but also relieved to finally be able to tell the truth.
And after I confessed to what I did, that really helped me move on with my life. Because I really felt bad about what I did. I wish I could take it away. Because it still bothers me to this day. What I did when I wasn't in my right frame of mind, when I was living that type of life, and now I still have to live with that.
Regardless of Tanika's honesty, the board still denies her request for parole.
Tanika was that girl that was lost, like so many other girls, and she made the decision to trust a man. That one bad decision, it affected the rest of her life.
As for Drew Glover, he was never charged in connection with Jocelyn's murder, but remains in prison on charges connected to the drug ring. Tanika ultimately serves 18 years of her sentence before being released in 2014 for good behavior.
Since Tanika's release, she has really turned her life around. Tanika is married now. She has a family of her own.
Today, my life is just totally different. It's like a life that I didn't see for myself back then when I was younger. I never even thought that I would live to be the age that I am, nor be the person that I am today.
Although Tanika's story is one of redemption, she'll never stop trying to make amends for the grave mistakes she made all those years ago in the name of love.
Her love for a man made her lose herself. Women should never put another man ahead of themselves. They shouldn't lose sight of their true vision, their true purpose.
I want to really give somebody a message. And sometimes you don't know what love is, so you take anything that somebody gives you as love when it's not. And you have to look within yourself and behind all the pain and all the tears and find that person that's dying to live deep down inside of you. And you have to first love that person so you won't allow harm into your life.
It's said that love will set you free. But the type of love makes all the difference. Falling prey to a toxic desire can cause you to lose touch with your heart and soul and destroy your life in the blink of an eye. But when you foster love and respect for yourself, you can begin conquering your demons. And just maybe,
they say true love means having a ride or die through any storm.
This was a couple that loved one another and were fiercely loyal to one another no matter what.
She even stuck with this brother while he went to prison. So she's somebody that's hardcore in love with this man.
But in a whirlwind of romance, unwavering loyalty can find you sacrificing everything.
There was bad blood between her boyfriend and another man, and she was in the middle of it.
She put herself on the line when she agreed to pay him to do the job for her man.
And crossing moral boundaries, swept away in love's fury.
He was shot 9 times as he went to work.
This pretty clearly from the jump, it seems like a very targeted attack.
Once those lines are crossed in the name of toxic love, there's no undoing the damage.
She tells police, hey, I only thought he was going to threaten him to drop the case. I had no idea this was going to happen.
The chaos of an unhealthy relationship is such that you're really not thinking down the road. You're thinking, how do I just get some relief in the moment?
December 31st, 2014, Chicago, Illinois. It's New Year's Eve, and the Windy City is ready to party until the ball drops.
The holiday season is a special time in Chicago. It's a chance for families to get together and enjoy the city's world-renowned institutions and attractions.
It's a time of great anticipation and I would say reflection, like, hey, it was a pretty good year, but next year is going to be even better. It's full of optimism and hope.
Despite all that it has to offer, some parts of Chicago have a reputation for violent crime. The Stony Island neighborhood on the South Side is a working-class community that has its ups and downs.
Stony Island is a well-known area. Depending on where you are on Stony Island, it can be troublesome. But then you also have a pocket of people that's trying to do something in that area, trying to make things happen.
At around 2:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve day, gunshots are heard near a rims and tire store in the Stony Island neighborhood.
Employees at the shop call 911, and they say there was a masked man who has shot their coworker, Reginald Jones, as he was coming into work.
33-year-old Reginald Jones is still alive, but he is gravely injured.
The employees at the tie shop throw him in the back of a pickup truck and rush him to the nearest hospital.
These guys were trying to keep him alive, try to help get him to the hospital. They realized that they couldn't wait for an ambulance because if they had waited, it would have been too late.
The hospital is only a couple miles away, but will Reginald survive the shooting? Reginald Jones has always been a respected man in his Southside Chicago community.
This was a guy that was a family man, that was a church-going guy. He was very active in his church. He had 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl.
He was out there working, being a positive thing to his family and his community.
Jones has been self-employed as a tow truck driver for around 8 years, working tirelessly to provide for his family. Reginald was always the life of the party.
The love this family had for Reginald was obvious. This man was adored by his family, and everyone knew it.
What Reginald's family loved most was his dedication to being a father.
By all accounts, he was very invested in his family and in the community.
And now, there's a chance Reginald's children will grow up without a father, as he's bleeding out in the back of a pickup truck.
They rushed him right down the street, so a very short distance. Unfortunately, due to the nature of him sustaining so many grievous wounds and stuff, that he pronounced dead on arrival.
His co-workers must have been devastated to see Reginald die like that in the back of a pickup truck, right in front of them. This was something you don't soon forget.
When police arrive at the tire shop, they know they have a murder investigation on their hands.
The victim had already been removed from the scene due to his injuries. The patrol units would arrive there, and they immediately secured the scene. Somebody was just shot 9 times. In Chicago, that's going to be obviously, in any place, obviously going to be a major crime scene. In that case, they're going to notify the detective division where I worked, and they're going to also notify extra forensic teams out there that are skilled and equipped to deal with this type of scene.
Unfortunately, the tire shop doesn't have surveillance cameras, so police begin to take eyewitness statements from people who were working in the shop when the shooting occurred.
People always talk about the first 48 hours and stuff, but sometimes the first 48 minutes is even more important.
One of the employees states that Reginald was originally scheduled to be off, but a customer had called him to purchase new tires.
Reginald was an entrepreneur, so along with owning his tow truck business, he also worked part-time at a tire shop.
One witness tells police that Reginald was walking into the shop, supposedly to meet the customer who had called him, when a masked man approached him in the parking lot. Without warning, the masked man shot at Reginald from behind as he was walking into the store.
So the business trying to, escape any further injury, but to no avail, the shooter, this masked individual, continues in and continues to shoot him. I mean, altogether, I think he's had 9 gunshots.
At first, police suspect this may have been an armed robbery gone terribly wrong.
The first thing is you have to figure out, hey, what's going on here? Sometimes it's pretty obvious. People came in and with ski masks and demanded money. So we know what their motivation is to get some money, and sometimes it obviously goes further and turns into something else. Robbery turns into a murder in some instances.
But there are problems with that theory.
As detectives are interviewing the witnesses, they say that the masked man never tried to take Reginald's wallet after he shot him, nor did he try to rob the register of the store. So robbery didn't seem to be the motive.
It was pretty clear from the onset that this guy was targeted.
As detectives process the crime scene, they find a total of 9 shell casings in the parking lot and inside the tire shop.
This person that fired these rounds, he had a target on Reginald, and his purpose was to go in and kill Reginald.
And then the challenge is to find out, why would somebody target this particular individual?
As a tow truck driver, police are sure Reginald has made a few people unhappy in the past.
No one likes when their car is being towed. But when the detectives talked to Reginald's coworkers, they couldn't think of anyone in his past who would have killed him over their car being towed. That theory was quickly thrown out the window.
But what about the mysterious customer who asked Reginald to sell him some tires on New Year's Day just before he was shot?
This was something that police wanted to explore because according to Reginald's co-workers, he wasn't planning to work on New Year's Eve. So who was this mysterious customer and why did he want tires on a holiday? Detectives are thinking this might have been a setup.
The workers at the tire shop have no idea who this mysterious customer is. Reginald arrived to the shop and the customer never did. So detectives will have to check Reginald's cell phone records.
For now, police have no suspects in the murder.
This is somebody that's a caring person, a family man, who's not out here doing anything wrong or harming anyone. This was just somebody that you wouldn't see becoming a target for a crime like this.
When police speak to Reginald's family about the murder, they are devastated by the news.
As a homicide detective, that always hit me personally, particularly living in this very same community. So that 14-year-old daughter lost a father, the 6- and 7-year-old sons lost a father, the mother lost a son.
Detectives are determined to solve the case. They soon catch a lucky break when Reginald's mother tells police about a man who had it out for her son.
Reginald's mom says that her son was shot in the arm about a year before he was murdered. The shooting happened because Reginald had caught someone stealing tire rims from him. And that was a huge turn in this investigation.
All these things factor into an investigator's mind. The detectives become aware that he in fact was the victim of a crime.
The man accused of shooting Reginald during the altercation is a nefarious Chicago criminal.
The person who shot Reginald was known in the community as a dangerous drug dealer, and this was someone that Reginald has stood up to.
But who is this man from Reginald's past? And did he commit the ultimate sin?
When police run a background check on this man, he appears to have a clear motive for wanting Reginald dead. There's just one problem. He had a rock-solid alibi.
The brutal killing of Reginald Jones has left his family grief-stricken. As police dig deeper into the case, it becomes clear that he may have been targeted for murder.
Police conducted an interview with Reginald's mother and realized that Reginald had been shot once before in 2013, about a year before his murder, because he caught someone stealing tire rims from him. And the person who shot him was named Ramondo Williams.
Ramondo Williams was at the time a drug dealer in the community.
That really sheds a whole new light onto it. Well, here's somebody that will certainly have some angst.
According to Reginald's mom, Ramondo had shot at her son, hitting him once in the arm.
Reginald survived the gunshot, and Ramondo was arrested for attempted murder.
After learning this information from Reginald's mother, police do an extensive search of their own records about the 2013 case.
Here in Chicago, we also have something called the victim's file. So consequently, his name would get run in a computer.
So the victim's file confirms everything the mother has told them about the beef between her son and Ramondo. There's just one problem. The file also tells detectives that Ramondo is currently in jail for the attempted murder of Reginald. So it would have been impossible for him to do the shooting.
As police continue to review the report, it appears the tension between Ramondo and Reginald only got more serious with Ramondo behind bars.
Ramondo is somebody that realizes if he gets pinned on this, he's gonna be behind bars for a while because he already has a rap sheet. So he's looking for anybody in his crew to help get him out of jail, meaning like, hey, let's pay off Reginald.
But police learned from Reginald's friends that he'd rebuffed Ramondo's bribe.
Reginald was saying, no, I want justice. You need to stay behind bars. You are not someone that is benefiting our community. Definitely not benefiting me by stealing from me.
Since Reginald wouldn't accept the payoff, police are wondering, was ordering a hit on him Ramondo's next plan?
Ramondo is known to Chicago police, so they know that he has people working on the streets for him, and these soldiers would kill for him. So police go to Cook County Jail to question Ramondo and see if they can put some heat on him.
When detectives question Ramondo, his demeanor matches the reputation in his file.
I mean, we're talking about a big-time drug dealer on the south side of Chicago. These people, they think they're untouchable. They think that they rule the world.
Ramondo denies having anything to do with Reginald's murder.
Detectives know a guy like Ramondo isn't just going to confess to a murder charge. But what they're trying to do is to get him to establish his story so that later, when more information surfaces, they can use it against him if he is in fact involved with this murder.
Ramondo defiantly brushes off the detectives.
Before the detectives leave, they ask for his visitor logs, and that's when they see the name of Brianna Smith. It seems like this Brianna has visited Ramondo quite a bit while he's been incarcerated.
Now, police are wondering, who is Brianna Smith and what is her relationship to Ramondo?
When you visit someone, you have to provide an ID. So detectives are immediately able to track down Brianna for a line of questioning.
26-year-old Brianna Smith is a Chicago resident who lives close to where Reginald was murdered.
When detectives track her down, Brianna is certainly not welcoming them with open arms. She clearly doesn't like police and is guarded.
Brianna tells police that she is Ramondo's girlfriend, and the two have been dating for close to 3 years.
She certainly had a stand-by-my-man attitude when police talked to her that first time. She told police in very clear terms that she loved Ramondo and would never do anything to hurt him. They were in a serious relationship.
Detectives ask Brianna straight up if she works for Ramondo's operation.
Word on the street is Brianna was running Ramondo's drug ring while he's in jail, but police were never able to prove that. They always suspected that she was performing some kind of illegal activities for him.
You're looking at a relationship where you have a woman that realizes that she's with a man that can basically give her anything. Whatever he wants, he can get.
Sometimes it's even baffling the level of dedication and love, if you want to call it that. And sometimes it's also economics involved, you know, like, hey, this is my lifeblood.
Detectives know that Brianna couldn't have been the shooter.
Every witness on the scene said that the shooter was a man, so Brianna wasn't the trigger person, but that doesn't mean that she wasn't involved in some way.
But police aren't letting Ramondo and Brianna off the hook so easily.
Just because Ramondo and Brianna didn't do the shooting doesn't mean that they're removed from the suspect pool. They are simply shifted to the back burner of the investigation.
Sadly, police are back to square one in the case.
At this point, the investigation is at a bit of a crossroad, so detectives have to start thinking outside the box. They need to start looking at other people who may be involved with this murder.
So detectives decide to look at the tire shop's records, and a certain customer's name grabs their attention.
Detectives open up Reginald's business books to see who he's done business with in the past. Specifically, they look at his business around the time of the attempted murder, 1 year before the actual murder. And that's when they realized that a man by the name of Leroy Dalling had bought a set of rings from Reginald. And Leroy is Ramondo's cousin.
Typically, police keep a list of well-known associates of people involved in criminal activity in the city. And Ramondo, a well-known drug dealer, was on their radar.
Was Leroy involved in the murder, or is there something else at play?
This seemed to be the connection that police needed to tie Ramondo to the murder. For the first time in the investigation, detectives thought, hey, this might be our guy.
It has been several weeks since the tragic death of Reginald Jones, and the police have yet to arrest a suspect, leaving his family and the entire Chicago community demanding answers.
His family was putting pressure on police to solve this case. You have to remember, he was revered in his neighborhood. But what they weren't aware of is that police have another person of interest in the investigation. Someone connected to their original suspect, Ramondo Williams, his cousin, Leroy Dalling.
It doesn't take long for detectives to find Leroy and bring him in for questioning.
This isn't Leroy's first rodeo with the police, and he is somewhat cooperative when police bring him into the station. What police is trying to do is get him locked into a statement in hopes that down the line, when more evidence surfaces, they could potentially make an arrest if this person ends up being the trigger man.
Police noticed that Leroy's size and race matched the description of the shooter.
When asked directly about Reginald's murder, Leroy denies any involvement.
That cousin just tells him blatantly, like, yeah, I have sold drugs for Ramondo before, but I'm not a killer.
Leroy states that, yes, he knew that there was bad blood between Ramondo and Reginald, but maintains that he had nothing to do with the murder. He states that he was with his girlfriend on New Year's Day and that he can confirm his alibi.
When pressed about the animosity between Ramondo and Reginald, Leroy sheds some light on the situation.
Leroy admits that when he purchased rims from Reginald, Ramondo was there at the time of the transaction, and that Ramondo created a plan to rob Reginald at a later time. But Reginald caught him in the act, and that's when Ramondo took out a gun and shot him in the arm.
Leroy maintains that this was the extent of his involvement, that beyond introducing Reginald and Ramondo at the tire shop, that he had nothing to do with the murder.
There's no reason for detectives to believe Leroy. He has a long rap sheet and he's not giving them a lot to work with. But before the interview ends, he gives detectives a crucial piece of information.
Leroy tells detectives that he heard Ramondo's girlfriend, Brianna Smith, was offering someone $4,000 to do a job.
Leroy states that he didn't know what the job was, only that he heard Ramondo was throwing money on the streets to get at some guy named Taco. So he assumed it had to be related to the Reginald situation, because he had heard Ramondo refer to Reginald in the past as Taco.
Detectives don't have enough to hold Leroy, although he's not eliminated from the suspect pool. But after his interview, All the attention is back on Brianna Smith.
There are two possible situations here. Either Leroy is telling the truth and that Brianna Smith was offering someone $4,000 to kill Reginald, or Leroy was the shooter and he was trying to distance himself from the case.
With information on an alleged payoff, detectives consider the possibility of Brianna being an accomplice.
You're looking at a relationship where you have a woman that realizes that she's with a man that can basically give her anything.
Finding out she was seeking to pay someone a large sum of money to carry out some sort of job, that's alarming to detectives. So that, coupled with the fact that she's Ramondo's girlfriend, makes it very likely that she was more involved than she claimed initially.
Detectives know that with Reginald out of the way, Ramondo is a free man, and life goes back to normal for Brianna.
Imagine what a woman that's in need can see from that and can benefit from that. I mean, when you think about it, before he was in jail, whatever Brianna needed, Ramondo supplied. Once that person is in jail, the supply is gone, but the demand is great. I need you out of prison.
Detectives request phone records from Cook County Jail to determine the nature of calls between the couple while he's been locked up.
Some people go off to jail and they don't get any phone calls from the girls on the street anymore and stuff, you know, and so, hey, I'll see you when I see you in 5 years, but other people, it's like, that's their lifeline.
As it turns out, Brianna and Ramondo not only spoke frequently, but had lengthy conversations.
Every call that is made is recorded. In fact, before the call even starts, there's a message that states this call will be recorded. When police sees the recordings of every call Ramondo has made in the past year of this incarceration, there are thousands of hours to go through.
Police comb through the calls for weeks, and their hard work soon pays off.
Throughout the year of his incarceration, Brianna spoke to Ramondo consistently, about once a week on the phone. But in the week before the murder, Brianna started talking to Ramondo almost on a daily basis.
The uptick in communication is highly suspicious to detectives.
Why were they communicating so often around the time of this murder? I think instantly detectives were thinking, okay, she helped him carry out the plan to kill Reginald.
There's a purpose of this communication. You know, obviously this person's eyes and ears to the street is in fact Brianna, and he's able to give her suggestions and directions on what he needs to happen.
In one of the calls, just days before the murder, Brianna and Ramondo talk about paying someone $4,000 for a job.
In the recorded call, they aren't saying this $4,000 is for a murder. They are trying to pretend it's for a legit job, but police aren't fooled. They know these two are criminals, and that amount is significant because it aligns with the information Leroy has told them.
More evidence is heard in another call recorded, just an hour after Reginald was murdered on New Year's Eve.
Ramondo and Brianna are hustlers. They aren't saying anything that would incriminate them directly, but detectives do know that it appears as if they are using a code while talking, especially on the day of the murder. In the call, Brianna specifically states that she ordered a 9-piece taco meal.
Detectives know that Reginald was shot 9 times, and according to Leroy, Ramondo had referred to Reginald as Taco.
Detectives hear 9-piece and they think, okay, they're talking about the shooting, and they hear the word taco, and they immediately believe that Brianna has just informed her boyfriend that the murder has been carried out.
Every phone call that they had these recordings on, there was basically a plot, a setup, a ploy to try and have something happen without anybody knowing.
But police still have a long way to go to prove that Brianna helped her boyfriend carry out a murder-for-hire scheme. And police have another problem on their hands. With Reginald dead, the charges against Ramondo from the 2013 shooting will be dropped.
And he was smart enough to know that the case would be dropped if Reginald was dead. So Ramondo was set to be released from the prison.
It's now a race against the clock to prove Ramondo is behind the killing.
Detectives know that if Ramondo gets out, things will only get tougher. His associates will be less willing to talk. Or worse, he could have anyone associated with this murder eliminated because this guy was a ruthless criminal.
Investigators have uncovered compelling leads that suggest Brianna Smith may have helped her boyfriend orchestrate the murder of beloved family man Reginald Jones. There's just one problem. They can't prove it.
They knew Brianna couldn't be the killer because eyewitnesses said that it was a man. And Ramondo was locked up, so he wasn't the trigger man. But it was becoming more clear that these two had something to do with Reginald's death. So police now have to prove that these two arranged the hit.
A key to unraveling the case lies in a series of incriminating phone calls between the couple that seem to indicate they were planning to kill Reginald for weeks.
The timing is very important because the attempted murder trial against Ramondo was about to happen. So he needed to act quickly to save himself from a long sentence of attempted murder.
When police don't have enough physical evidence, or it's mostly circumstantial, and their only cooperating witness is dead, then authorities face a significant challenge. The prosecution has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and if they can't, they don't move forward.
With Reginald out of the way, Ramondo was a free man. They had to release him from custody.
So detectives decide to take another crack at Brianna. They now have enough probable cause to get a court order to seize her cell phone records.
The first thing detectives want to do is take a look at her movements around the time of the murder. And what's interesting in this case is that Brianna's phone pinged off locations that Reginald frequented quite regularly, right around the time that he was murdered.
Reginald was known to visit his mother on a weekly basis. Brianna's phone pinged off a tower near the mother's home multiple times.
That's not the only thing the cell phone records reveal.
Reginald was a tow truck driver, and he had to keep detailed records of his routes and operations. So detectives pulled these records, and they could see multiple locations that Reginald visited around the time of the murder. And when these locations are compared to Brianna's cell phone pings, it reveals that Brianna was near him and following him almost on a daily basis the week of his murder.
Clearly, Brianna was trying to get a sense of Reginald's routine so that he would become an easier target for Ramondo. This was a hit, and Ramondo was ordering his woman to stalk his prey.
These investigations are kind of like putting puzzles together. Some puzzles are obviously more complex and some puzzles are fairly simple, but they all require certain pieces to be put together.
The final piece of the puzzle is captured in one of the recorded calls between Ramondo and Brianna.
After police process the cell phone evidence, some of the calls start to make more sense in hindsight. In the calls, Brianna talks about visiting places at certain locations. All these places were areas that Reginald was frequenting, so the code was essentially broken.
They're obviously in communication. There's directions being given by Ramondo. We've got a few more pieces to the puzzle.
Detectives have enough to bring Brianna back in for another round of questioning.
Brianna isn't stupid. She could feel that detectives are closing in on her. And this time around, detectives are pressing her harder. They confront her with the recorded calls between her and Ramondo.
Brianna wouldn't be caught up in this if she hadn't had the conversations with Ramondo. For her, this probably was the first big situation that she probably got herself involved with.
Detectives tell Brianna that they know she had been following Reginald in the weeks leading up to the murder, and that Ramondo ordered her to do so.
The detectives know that she can't talk her way out of it. So she starts to consider her options because she knows that this isn't going away anytime soon.
Brianna finally starts talking.
She stops short of saying Ramondo wanted Reginald dead. She never gives that to the police. But she does say that Ramondo instructed her to give $4,000 in cash from a safe in his mother's home to an associate of his. She tells police that she put the money in a bag and she left it at a drop point. She had no idea who picked it up and what was done with it.
Police know there won't be any financial records to support Brianna's claim. Crime is a cash business. People like Ramondo are street smart. They're not gonna wire money where it can be traced back to them. They're always going to use cash.
Detectives ask Brianna if she thinks Ramondo's cousin, Leroy, was the shooter.
Brianna repeated her stance to detectives that she didn't know who the shooter was, so it seems that Leroy's story is holding up. Police are frustrated. They want all parties involved, not just 2 out of 3.
When asked why she was following Reginald around the time of the murder, Brianna plays dumb.
She plays it off if she lives around there, and that was just a coincidence. But when confronted by evidence, she realizes that it's her ass or Ramondo's ass. So she tells police that Ramondo told her to follow Reginald.
She says, I only thought he was going to be threatened to drop the case. I had no idea that this was going to happen. She claims that she was just helping her boyfriend and did what he asked her to do.
It was clear Brianna was caught up in her relationship with Ramondo.
There's almost no going back. You just kind of keep going forward. And until you're faced with some immovable force, you're gonna keep making decisions that are preserving of this relationship.
Detectives aren't buying Brianna's act. They believe she knows more.
She was there when Ramondo tried killing Reginald the first time. She knew what Ramondo was capable of. She was just doing damage control at this point.
Brianna Smith is arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She's held without bond.
Since she admitted to paying someone $4,000 for this job and the other compelling evidence against her, police had enough to charge her. Without that confession, they wouldn't have been able to move forward with charges.
The charges are very significant in this case because Brianna could go away for life for a murder she didn't commit. Police wanted to hold someone responsible for this senseless crime.
Reginald's family is elated by news of the arrest.
This was their brother, this was their uncle, this was their son. This was someone that was truly cared for. This was just somebody that you wouldn't see becoming a target for a crime like this.
Everyone was happy that Brianna was behind bars for the crime, but there was still quite a bit of concern because Ramondo was still a free man. Reginald's family would not sleep easily with him still walking the streets.
Police are eager to find Ramondo since they believe he's the architect behind the heinous crime.
At this time, even with Brianna's statement, police still don't have enough to charge Ramondo because she never once says, my boyfriend ordered me to have him killed.
But Brianna isn't behind bars long before she has a change of heart.
Brianna is in prison for a first-degree murder charge, and she lawyers up. And the lawyer calls the police and says, my client's father has been threatened by Ramondo.
Vamos, amigos. ¿Tienen la parte de B? Pues sí, si quieren.
3 years have passed since the murder of Reginald Jones, and police have charged Brianna Smith with first-degree murder. Authorities suspect Brianna's boyfriend, Ramondo, ordered the shooting, but have yet to uncover solid evidence connecting him to the crime.
Brianna Smith is in jail for murder. Ramondo is still out in the streets, and Brianna states that Ramondo's people have threatened her father. This poses a big problem to investigators because if Brianna recants her statements to the police, they essentially have no case against Ramondo, and he walks a free man.
Since her arrest, Brianna had refused to implicate Ramondo, but with the threats to her family and facing a potential life sentence, Brianna reaches out to investigators.
Brianna, up to this point, has never implicated Ramondo directly, but I think she started to realize that this man didn't really care about her if it meant him spending the rest of his life in prison.
Brianna tells police she wants to make a deal.
Brianna's offered a reduced charge of conspiracy to commit murder on the condition that she testifies against Ramondo in court.
This is such an important moment for the police because it means they can finally arrest Ramondo and charge him with the murder.
For Brianna Smith, it's the first time she separates herself from Ramondo.
When we try to understand why women get involved in criminal activity, it becomes acceptable to think about them as, oh, you were overpowered by this man, or you did it, because you're a victim. And that might not be how she sees herself. Performance of femininity might be standing by your man. And so violence may be a way to perform that femininity.
Ramondo Williams is arrested and charged with the murder of Reginald Jones.
I think for Reginald's family, this was probably the first time that they could breathe a sigh of relief.
When in custody, Ramondo maintains his innocence and, surprisingly, has nothing but nice things to say about Brianna.
Ramondo says about Brianna that she's the best girlfriend that he's ever had. He still had nothing but positives to say about her and their relationship, never connecting her to the murder.
But police aren't convinced by his facade as the doting boyfriend.
He knows that if he implicates her, it only implicates himself because he was the only one who had a motive to kill Reginald. So he has no choice but to act like a loving boyfriend and keep this charade up. He doesn't want to give her any more fuel than she already needs to testify against him.
As part of her deal with prosecutors, Brianna pleads guilty to the lesser charge of conspiracy to commit murder and is sentenced to 10 years with credit for time served.
The stipulations of this deal include her telling to the court a detailed event of how the murder was orchestrated.
During the trial, she admits that she knew all about Reginald and Ramondo's beef over the years. She said that Ramondo tried to pay Reginald off several times, but Reginald refused. Reginald wanted justice for the attempted murder, and Ramondo was frustrated and angry about that.
Brianna adds that Ramondo knew he had to silence Reginald as the 2013 attempted murder case approached.
Brianna was in love with Ramondo and would do anything for him. She states that Ramondo created a plan for her to follow Reginald to get a sense of his movements, and he told her to give an unnamed person $4,000 for a job. Brianna states that she never knew who this person was, that the money was exchanged at a drop point, and everything was hush-hush.
Brianna states that on the day of the murder, she was actually near the tire shop where Reginald was shot.
She didn't witness the crime, but she certainly knew it had gone down. She was nearby, saw the police response, and knew that the job was done.
At the end of her testimony, Brianna is sent to prison to begin her 10-year sentence for conspiracy to commit murder.
Even with Brianna's testimony at her court hearing, this was no slam dunk case against Ramondo.
Brianna's testimony was damning, but the hardest part of the case has yet to come.
They want to see Ramondo behind bars for good, and there was concern that he would beat this case.
After taking a plea deal, Brianna Smith testified against her boyfriend Ramondo Williams in the murder trial of Reginald Jones.
The family got some sense of justice when Brianna accepted the 10-year sentence, but they know that she was just a pawn.
While her testimony helped the prosecution, the key in this trial is proving the motive, in that Ramondo Williams was calling all the shots. They needed to show that all the evidence they collected pointed to Ramondo.
The question go back, well, who would want to hurt this guy? Well, we already got somebody that wants to hurt him. He's certainly the strongest suspect and the person who most would benefit from the demise of the victim.
At the center of the case are the hundreds of hours of phone calls between Brianna and Ramondo.
They were focusing in on the key evidence, which was the phone conversations that they had, that they taped from Brianna as well as Ramondo.
Talking in veiled language about Mr. Jones and then eventually planning his murder. Mr. Williams and Miss Smith talking about getting $4,000 and giving it to other people.
Ramondo's defense team tries to play it off as a boyfriend helping his girlfriend in her time of need.
The defense doubles down on Ramondo being a loving boyfriend who was simply trying to support his girlfriend while being locked up. But this was such an obvious lie, especially when you look at all the circumstantial evidence surrounding this case.
The bottom line is Reginald has stood up to Ramondo, and by doing so, Reginald was going to be going away to prison for a very long time, and that was unacceptable to him.
After a tense trial, the jury reaches a verdict.
The jury deliberates and comes back with a guilty verdict. He is given 65 years for the murder of Reginald Jones.
Reginald's family is elated by the verdict.
Eventually, you know, that family is able to get some semblance of justice, at least know that their loss wasn't just in vain. And that brings, I think, a great level of satisfaction.
While the family is happy that Brianna and Ramondo are behind bars, they're frustrated that the actual shooter was never arrested.
They got the main orchestrators of the crime, which was important. But for the family to know that the person who killed your loved one perhaps gets to live out his life as if the murder never happened, that's infuriating. There's nothing that can really make you forget that.
As for Brianna Smith, She's the victim of love gone wrong.
As she spends years thinking about these decisions, she might understand a different, how she got herself on this path. But at the time, she might not have seen herself as somebody who was a victim to her relationship, who was putting herself in a precarious position at her own detriment.
Luckily for Brianna, she will get a chance to rebuild her life when her sentence ends.
I don't think we understand the immense amount of pressure that these relationships enact on people.
Her actions cost Reginald his life. There's no bringing him back.
She only got 10 years, so she has a chance.
Social media and dating apps have forever changed the world of love and romance.
Back in the day, people discovered romance through personal interaction. Now it's swipe right or swipe left. You're judging someone not by their personality, but simply by how they look.
Fixating only on the physical can lead to a revolving door of romantic partners. And the result can be as uncertain as a coin toss.
Are you meeting the woman of your dreams, or is it a psychopath? And how will you know?
A lot of men become naive and humble and vulnerable to someone that they're interested in.
But what happens when love goes off the rails?
You could be having the time of your life one minute and be living your worst nightmare the next.
Love is one of the oldest motives for murder in the book.
June 22nd, 2020, Columbus, Georgia. It's a warm summer morning in the state's second most populous city, one which continues to grow by leaps and bounds.
There are so many different cultures and backgrounds that make up Columbus, and it makes it a great place to live, great place to be.
The city is filled with parks, museums, and other amenities, including the extremely popular Chattahoochee River.
A lot of what is happening in Columbus is centered around downtown by the river.
But on this morning, the city's attention is focused on a small neighborhood in the southeast part of the city.
At 7:19 a.m., a concerned citizen in this neighborhood calls 911 to report what appears to be a dead body lying on the ground in the cul-de-sac.
This isn't the type of neighborhood that you would normally just find bodies laying in the street. This is a family neighborhood. This is not normal, so to speak.
Patrol officers are the first to arrive on the scene.
They find a black male, looks fairly young, maybe in his 20s or 30s, and he's lying face down on the ground, doesn't have any obvious injuries.
They thought maybe he passed away on natural causes. And when EMS got there, they rolled him over. And during that time, EMS has now determined that the subject is lifeless, and they have found the gunshot wound. There's stippling around the wound, which means the gun was in close proximity to the body, 6 feet or less.
On the ground nearby is a 9mm shell casing.
That tells police that the gunman used a semi-automatic weapon, which automatically ejects shell casings, and it was a 9mm. So they know what kind of weapon they're looking for.
Homicide detectives arrive, as does the county coroner, who is able to help narrow down the time of death.
It's actually hard to determine exactly how long without having an actual temperature of the body and then gauging the temperature of the night. But as far as the investigation and working with the coroner's office, we kind of narrowed that window of somewhere around 8 to 12 hours of him being on the street.
A search of the victim's pockets reveals neither a wallet nor a cell phone. Investigators do find more than $400 in cash.
That's a large amount of cash to be carrying. And it's very unusual to carry it loose in your pockets like that rather than in a wallet.
Detectives notice one other unusual detail. The man is wearing socks, but no shoes.
The lack of shoes is kind of unusual. When they look at the socks, they don't really see a lot of dirt or gravel, so it doesn't look like he walked a long distance.
And there is no vehicle in the cul-de-sac. So of course, one of the first questions is going to be, how did this individual get to where he is now? Is he from the neighborhood? We found a necklace or a chain that had been broken and was next to his body. We also found an empty gun holster that was at his waistband. It was actually halfway out of his waistband when we rolled him over. So at that time, we knew one of two things. Either this was an attempted robbery and things went bad, or somebody wanted him dead.
Can I talk to you for a quick second?
Patrol officers fan out and begin a canvass of the neighborhood.
Did you hear or see anything last night, this morning?
Not only are they looking to see if the victim is from the neighborhood, but they want to see if anyone saw or heard anything unusual the night before.
If he was killed 8 to 12 hours earlier, as the coroner estimated, then that means he was shot sometime between 8 p.m. and midnight. So someone very easily could have heard the gunshot, looked out the window, and saw the killer.
Yeah, the kids say they heard a lot of firecrackers, which we did too. They know, like pow, pow. Right. Okay. It was a gunshot or what?
You could also find that you've got witnesses that don't even realize they were a witness. They could have seen something that they naturally just kind of shrugged off, didn't think anything about it. The other thing you have to also consider is you might have a suspect that lives close by as well too.
We spent several hours working the neighborhood, not only for leads, not only for witnesses or video surveillance, but also in hopes to identify our victim. We struck out all day long.
Detectives have one last hope, a new technology they call the RID.
We currently have a tool that's a device that is kind of like a cell phone, but it has a fingerprint reader, connects to the internet. We call it the RID. It's the rapid identification device. Ours is linked to our local jail system. Anybody that's been arrested or anyone that's received a citation or anyone that had a reason to be fingerprinted would be in our database.
They use the RID to upload their victim's fingerprints, but there's no match.
That led us to believe that either he's a Columbus citizen who has never been in any type of trouble, or he's not from Columbus at all.
Detectives are really behind the 8 ball on this one. Solving a John Doe murder can be extremely difficult to do. Most murders are committed by someone who knows the victim, but if you don't even know the victim's identity, you have no way to determine who knows him and who comprises his inner circle. The clock is ticking and detectives are still stuck on square one. They can't identify the victim and they have zero chance of finding his killer at this point.
When the body of a young man is found lying dead in a cul-de-sac in Columbus, Georgia, detectives have no idea who the victim may be.
There is no identification, no wallet with the body, there's no car or any suggestion of how he got there. And a portable fingerprint reader shows he has no record of being arrested.
Detectives and patrol officers conduct a canvass of the neighborhood looking for any potential witnesses, but they don't find anyone who knows anything.
The body is sent to the morgue, where an autopsy will be performed. Detectives notice that their victim has several unusual tattoos.
He has a tattoo on his arm that says Kiyoki. Police assume that's probably a name, and it's unusual enough that someone in the community might recognize it and provide some helpful information.
Police take a picture of the tattoo and put it up on social media so the community can see it and hopefully they get a call.
It's late afternoon, and almost 10 hours have passed since the body was discovered. Detectives contact the FBI, who have their own version of the rapid identification device.
Our device is only linked to a database that we use with the Columbus or Muskogee County Jail, but the FBI has access to a similar device, but their device is linked to multiple databases from multiple jurisdictions.
The FBI agent scans the man's fingerprints, and within minutes, he has a name: Travis Jermaine Henry.
Travis Jermaine Henry was born on February 22, 1998, in Montgomery, Alabama.
Travis, or Trav, Lil Trav, as we affectionately called him. From the beginning, he was a handful. He was the first grandson on both sides of his mother and father's side of the family. He loved his parents and his grandparents. Travis's mother was Keoki Ball, and Travis was her only child. He gets a lot of his personality from his mom, because she was just so full of energy.
Travis was so close to his mom that he got her name, Keoki, tattooed on his arm.
He was his mom's child. He was definitely his mom's child, and they shared a bond. He loved both of his parents, made no mistake about it.
After graduating high school, Travis focused on building a business that could help others.
He had like that entrepreneur spirit about him. He wanted to build and even do things in his community. One of the things he wanted to do was he wanted to buy properties, rebuild and, revitalize, renovate these properties and offer low-income housing.
It didn't take long for Travis to find success, and he enjoyed its trappings.
He loved old school cars too, so he had like an old school Regal that he invested money in, and he had recently had gotten a BMW.
In the spring of 2020, the COVID pandemic took the entire world by storm. No one was more directly affected than the Henry family.
Travis's mom, Keoki, became very sick early in the pandemic and eventually succumbed to COVID. Her death was devastating to Travis.
During the early stages of COVID, you couldn't visit your loved ones. You had to just kind of talk to them over the phone. That last week or so of his mom's life, he wasn't even able to be with her physically, to comfort her, just be there with her.
Just 2 weeks later, Travis's grandfather also passed.
His grandfather had suffered a stroke, I think it was, and he was hospitalized. But once his grandfather found out about the news of losing his daughter, of losing Kiki, needless to say, it just kind of floored him. So Travis' mom passed on May the 20th. His granddad died, I think it was June the 7th. So that Thursday before this happened to Lil Trav, he actually had to bury his grandfather.
The tragic events took a toll on Travis.
He was struggling. We all were struggling, but it definitely, the relationship him and his mom had and stuff, he was definitely struggling. He didn't even want to stay at his mom's house, anymore, because it was just reminding him of his mom. He had expressed interest in relocating to Georgia. He wanted, kind of like a fresh start, to kind of get away.
With their victim identified, detectives are able to move the investigation forward. The first thing they must do is notify the Henry family.
We tried never to do a death notification over the phone. It's distasteful, I believe. Being face-to-face with somebody, I think, shows them that I care and that I care about the job that I'm doing.
The problem is that Montgomery, Alabama is 90 minutes away, and detectives can't really stop their investigation. So they make the notification by phone.
I got on the phone with the family and was able to get a phone number for Mr. Henry. I knew that plotting his cell phone would be huge in understanding where all he was at. Obviously, he ended up on Nina Street. We wanted to know where else he had been in the city of Columbus.
Detectives obtained Travis's cell records, which includes GPS tracking data.
Well, we know his cell phone wasn't on his body. So his cell phone left with the suspects. So we know wherever that phone ended up is going to lead us something or somewhere close to more evidence. So we find that his phone is pinging in Phoenix City, Alabama.
The Chattahoochee River is the dividing line between Georgia and Alabama. And Phoenix City is just over the river on the Alabama side. It's only 10 or 15 minutes from Columbus.
Late that evening, Detective Hayes leaves his office en route to Phoenix City. As he steps outside, he's shocked to see almost 3 dozen members of the Henry family, and they are anxious to know what happened to Travis.
We're leaving headquarters, and we had people easy in our parking lot wanting to see me. They're calling 911 asking to speak to Detective Hayes in reference to Mr. Henry's death. They wanted answers.
Now this kind of anger is kind of simmering, starting to simmer, because why?
In a homicide investigation, you have to let the evidence be what guides you. But it's also human nature to start to develop theories on your own based on what you're seeing. For me personally, I believed there was actually some sort of robbery. He had possibly attempted to defend himself, but it's really important not to let that theory be what guides you. You can always keep a theory in the back of your mind, but you always have to let the evidence be.
Following a day-long investigation, detectives finally identified Travis Henry as the man found dead in a Columbus, Georgia cul-de-sac. Later that night, a large contingent of family members arrive at the police station in search of answers to their questions about why Travis was killed.
He was not some sort of loner who just went off and did his own thing. He came from a large family in Montgomery, Alabama that loved him, and he loved them in return. They were very involved in his life.
Most of the family members are in shock or even denial.
This can't be Trav. Maybe a mix-up or something, someone that looks like him. I don't know. Maybe just, I guess, grasping. It gotta be some type of mistake, like.
Of course, this is a very common response for family members. The first stage of grief is denial, and they simply can't believe that Travis is gone. And as they slowly begin to accept that, they want answers.
We quickly tell the family that we don't disclose any information, because if we tell them what we have at that moment and they tell somebody else and then it leaks to somebody else, if somebody ever come forward as a witness and told us something that we knew, we wouldn't be able to verify whether or not that information was firsthand or not, because we let it out. So it gets frustrating sometimes when family members when we can't answer their questions and we tell them that we are working leads, but we can't tell them what those leads are.
The Henry family graciously accepts that response.
You could tell he was sincere, that because he expressed, I want to find who did this to your loved one.
The family tells police that on June 21st, 2020, the day before his body was found, Travis made plans with his cousin to go to the Peachtree Mall in Columbus to do some shopping.
But something came up, and his cousin ended up backing out of the trip. And that was last anyone heard from Travis, which is pretty unusual. He wasn't the type who simply disappeared and stopped communicating.
Maybe he's going through where he's kind of maybe isolated himself for a minute, that this grief is getting to him. So we got to get to him to let him know, baby, we all here. I immediately text him, nephew, I'm just leaving the doctors. You know, reach out, let me know if you need to just come to the house. Come on, or whatever. No response.
Sylvia tells police she becomes worried, and with other family members, begins trying to locate Travis.
So I went to Toya's house. You know, they had been checking hospitals. We checking in Montgomery and Alabama and stuff, just trying to see, did anybody hear anything, see anything? Gotta get some type of answer. Nothing about this is sitting well.
One of Travis's friends tells police that he has access to Travis's Facebook page. Messages on the page show that after plans with his cousin fell through, Travis agreed to come to Columbus to meet a woman.
A cousin of Mr. Henry's had access to his Facebook page. and was actually logged into Mr. Henry's Facebook page on his cell phone. So we was able to see who he was last in contact with. And they would show us that he was in last contact with a female by the name of Tariana Horton. My partner at the time recognized the name from a case that he had worked when he was assigned to another bureau in the department. And he recognized her Facebook page, and he said, "Yeah, I know this girl."
The detective remembers that a year earlier, Tariana Horton's brother, Tarion Joseph, had been murdered, and Tariana had been interviewed about that case. So he begins digging through police records to try to find a current address for Tariana Horton.
Travis Henry's grandmother, Vicki McLemore, is also at the police station that night. She tells Detective Hayes that Travis was driving his BMW 528i when he came to Columbus.
Detectives enter the vehicle into their system as stolen, and it is immediately compared to all reports of found vehicles. And detectives are instantly notified of a BMW 528i that was found earlier in the day in Phoenix City.
We were able to work with Russell County Sheriff's Office in Russell County, Alabama, and the Phoenix City Police Department, Phoenix City, Alabama, and find that actually earlier that morning, while we were working our crime scene, there was a vehicle, a 911 call in Phoenix City, Alabama about an abandoned vehicle, and it was about the BMW. We go there and we find this is the vehicle that has the registration to Miss McLemore.
The car is found parked in a grassy area near a landfill.
It's a very rural area, and the car is actually pulled off the road through a dirt path and then halfway into some trees and brush. So it's pretty clear that someone was trying to hide it so it wouldn't be found.
Travis Henry's cell phone records showed that his phone last pinged off towers in the area where the car was found. This strongly suggested that it was put there after he was already dead, so he didn't drive it there himself.
Crime scene techs immediately begin processing the BMW for fingerprints and DNA evidence.
Whoever parked the car obviously had some involvement in the murder. So police are hoping that they'll find something in or on the car that will help them identify that person or persons.
The vehicle appeared to be ransacked and possibly wiped down, as we didn't get any fingerprints confirmed from any latent lifts off of the vehicle.
But there is one clue in the car. In a cup holder in the center console of the BMW, they find a soda cup with the logo from Circle K convenience stores.
Cell phone records show Mr. Henry's phone pinged a tower near a Circle K.
Most convenience stores have surveillance cameras, so detectives are wondering, did the killer stop and get a soda from the Circle K? Could they be caught on camera?
Detectives investigating the murder of Travis Henry uncover information that leads them to a Columbus, Georgia convenience store.
They're trying to identify who is driving Travis's BMW because they are more than likely involved in the murder.
Detectives go into the Circle K and obtain the store's surveillance video from the night of June 22nd, 2020.
The video shows that at 10:13 p.m., a dark BMW with a European tag on the front bumper pulls into the parking lot. The driver of the vehicle gets out of the car and goes inside the store.
Detectives immediately recognize the driver as Travis Henry, so clearly this video was shot before he was killed.
With that video, we're able to see what he was what he was wearing. He's wearing the same clothes we find him deceased in. He's wearing all of his jewelry.
So you're not actually able to see if someone else was in the car. But the video shows that the car headlights and taillights remained on, so Mr. Henry did not turn the engine off. And that strongly suggests that someone else, someone he trusted, was inside the car while he went into the store.
If Travis did have a passenger in the car with him that night, police can't help but wonder if it might have been Tariana Horton, the woman he made plans with online.
You can see in the video that he has a smile on his face, so he doesn't appear to be under any duress at that point.
He exits the store 4 minutes later carrying a soda. He is back into the driver's side of his BMW, backs up, and drives off.
Investigators download the content of Travis Henry's Facebook page, including his messages. They discover he first began messaging Terriana Horton and another young woman named Kalea Sumter 5 weeks earlier.
On May 15th, Travis received a friend request from Kalea Sumter, and then less than 10 minutes later, he received another friend request, this time from Terriana Horton. And then immediately after that, Travis and Terriana began communicating through private messages.
What we quickly realized, Mr. Henry had previously met these two girls somewhere. They knew each other. And that these two girls, Kalea Sumter and Terriana Horton, were flirting back and forth with Mr. Henry.
Travis messages Terriana that he and a friend are interested in meeting the girls.
A short while later, Terriana asks Travis if he and his friend are able to come to Columbus that night.
Travis's mom is very sick at the time, and she's actually in the hospital dying from COVID, so he's not able to go and meet with them. Over the next month or so, they have sporadic contact, so there is just some messages here and there, just sort of general flirting.
On the afternoon of June 21st, 2020, Travis messages Terriana that he may come to Columbus for the night.
Terriana messages him back, "Come on." She tells him that they can go to the Riverwalk and hang out.
He basically hits the road. His cell phone shows him traveling. He's hitting different towers from Montgomery to Phoenix City to Columbus. We see that he makes contact with her and says, "Hey, I'm getting close. Where can I meet you?"
Terriana tells him to pick her up at an apartment complex in Columbus. She doesn't give him an exact street address, but she provides various landmarks for him to follow to get there.
His phone would show him arriving, taking the highway and arriving to Whisperwood Apartments here in Columbus, Georgia. You can see in their conversation on Facebook, he says, "Hey, I'm here." She says, "Hold on, I'm coming out."
Detectives are convinced that the Facebook messages suggest that Terriana Horton is, at the very least, one of the last people to see Travis Henry alive.
Detectives know they have to find Horton and question her as soon as possible.
Detectives know, based on social media messages, that 20-year-old Terriana Horton was with Travis Henry the night he was killed.
They also know that Travis had interacted with Kalea Sumter on Facebook, and they could tell from those initial Facebook messages that Kalea and Terriana were most likely friends. So police are looking for both of these young women. Because Terriana had been questioned by the police before, detectives are eventually able to find contact numbers for her parents.
We would actually make contact with her mother and father who lived here in Columbus, Georgia, and they would bring Terriana Horton to us. We simply expressed that, Terriana Horton, his name had come up in an investigation, and that it was important that we speak with her.
Terriana Horton's early life was filled with upheaval.
Not a lot is known about her family life, but we can assume it was pretty chaotic. She ran away from home several times. She was even reported missing by her mother. She was involved in numerous fights in school and out of school, on the streets.
It's quite common to see children who have troubled family lives also have issues in school, and Terriana was a good example of that.
Terriana's brother, Terrion, was apparently killed in street violence in 2019.
There was some indication that her brother was in a gang and his murder was gang-related. It's not uncommon for juvenile females to be attracted to this gang activity that involves street fights and running around late at night committing robberies and being involved in shootings. Her brother also got caught up in that type of life.
Witnessing her brother's death must have been a very traumatic experience for her. It probably pushed her even more towards a life of crime.
Around this time, Terriana and Kalea Sumter became friends. Kalea was a few years younger, and they came from a similar background, so they started hanging out together.
Detectives also tracked down Kalea Sumter's parents.
We had kind of stressed the fact, we kind of pushed the idea to her family that Kalea Sumter's involved in this too. So we get her, and we now have both these young ladies in the police department, and we're going to conduct interviews with both of them.
Hayes begins by questioning Terriana Horton. She admits she knew Travis Henry prior to their online encounter.
Both the girls met Mr. Henry at some party somewhere in Alabama, and that's how they became Facebook friends.
You can see in the messages that she's starting to flirt with Travis, and she suggests several times that he come to Columbus, and finally, on June 21st, he does. Because of all the flirting they've already done online, there's a pretty clear implication from Terriana's messages that if he comes to Columbus, they will end up having sex. And Travis actually talks about getting a hotel room for that night.
But Terriana tells police she is doing this at the urging of her friend, Kalea.
According to Terriana, Kalea is sort of the driving force behind all of this. She asked Terriana to lure Travis to Columbus because she and two men she knew wanted to rob Travis.
Those men are 19-year-old Lydell Sparks and 25-year-old Wayman McMillan.
Police wanted to understand Terriana's relationship with the two men involved, and whether her actions were part of a collective plan or done on behalf of one of them.
Lydell Sparks is a troubled young man, and I don't know very many law enforcement officers with the Columbus Police Department that during the years between 2018 and 2020 wouldn't have had some sort of contact with Lydell Sparks. Stolen cars, burglaries, domestic disputes, gun charges. Mr. Sparks and his partner Wayman were always involved in something.
They had a lot of stuff on their social media that would indicate they were involved in guns and drugs and things like that.
They targeted Travis Henry because on his Facebook page, Travis had pictures of his BMW, and he was wearing a lot of expensive clothes and jewelry and flashing a lot of cash.
They knew he had money, and they'd have a large sum of money to take from Mr. Henry.
Terriana says the plan was for her to take Travis to a secluded section of the Riverwalk.
The plan was that Terriana would get Travis alone, and then the other three, Kalea, Lydell Sparks, and Wayman McMillan, would come upon them and rob them.
They would have a getaway vehicle because they would have Miss Wharton's vehicle, and they would leave the victim there.
But the plan hits a snag. There are too many potential witnesses on the Riverwalk.
There's a playground and a splash pad there, which draws a lot of children and families, especially in the summertime. So even though it's 9 p.m., it's a hot summer night, and there are a lot of people there.
Terriana texts Kalea that there are way too many people there and the plan is not going to work. So they have to come up with another plan.
One of the guys would suggest go to Nina Street, and Miss Sumter would text Miss Horn, we're going to Nina Street, go there.
They were familiar with that area, and they knew it was a cul-de-sac that had a bunch of abandoned homes nearby, so it would be quiet and secluded.
Terriana says to Travis, "Hey, it's too crowded here. Let's go to some place that's more quiet." And he immediately agrees.
At Terriana's direction, Travis parks in the cul-de-sac, and they talk for a while. Terriana then sees another car pull up and tells Travis that it's some of her friends.
Kalea, who Travis Henry knew because they had met previously at a party, walks up to the car, and Travis rolls down his window and they begin talking.
Travis doesn't see that behind Kalea is Lydell Sparks, who is holding a pistol in his hand. Then suddenly Sparks jumps out from behind Kalea, pointing a gun at Travis, and pulls open the front door.
What no one realizes is that Travis Henry is also armed. He has a pistol in his holster in the front of his shorts. And when he sees Sparks, he tries to pull the gun out of his holster.
But before Travis can grab the gun, Sparks fires one shot, striking him in the chest.
Sparks pulled Travis out of the car, and then they quickly started pulling off his jewelry and his watch. And then panic set in, and they worried that someone had heard the shot and realized they needed to get out of there as quickly as possible.
They panicked, which was the reason why the $400 cash was left in his pocket behind. They just left Mr. Henry dumped on the side of the road to die.
Sparks gets into Travis's BMW and drives it across the river to Phoenix City. Terriana Horton Kalea Sumter and Wayman McMillan follow him in the other car.
They wiped down the BMW for fingerprints and then abandoned it.
Every single person that I work with in the Violent Crimes Unit has a strong fear in God, and that is our motivating factor, because we believe that only God gets to decide who lives, who dies, where, when, and how that happens. And the fact that the God I serve doesn't walk around the streets of Columbus with a 9mm means that someone's playing God. And I take that personal. My coworkers take that personal. And that's why we work so hard to solve these cases.
Terriana Horton has told Columbus, Georgia police about her involvement in the murder of Travis Henry. But detectives believe she's not being completely truthful.
Terriana is saying that she wasn't really involved in the plan to rob Travis. She's pinning most of the blame on Kalea and the other two men, Lydell Sparks and Wayman McMillan. But detectives have Kalea in another interrogation room, so they're able to go back and forth with the two women, basically comparing notes on what each of them is saying. And Kalea says it was actually all Terriana's idea.
Kalea also says it was Terriana
years in prison. Although she will only serve 8 behind bars and the rest is probation, Kalea Sumter also pleads guilty to armed robbery and gets 15 years with 6 to be served in prison. McMillan is also sentenced to 15 years with 8 in prison.
Due to COVID protocols, Lydell Sparks' trial for murder is delayed until June of 2022. He is convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of a parole.
The jury would deliberate several hours and would come back with a guilty verdict on all charges, which, as an investigator, is the most rewarding feeling that you could ever receive, is a guilty verdict on a murder.
I wish he would have got the death penalty.
Travis's family also blames the other participants, especially Sparks' girlfriend, Terriana Horton.
I definitely would describe her as lost. She did this for his approval or again, to be in his grace or whatever. Like, senseless to me. They didn't pull the trigger, but I would have expected more time. I would have liked, I honestly would have liked if they would have been given more time. Why do I say that? Because it's almost like you all were too comfortable collectively to engage into something like this.
Put together a plan to commit a robbery on somebody who was working hard for their money, who they thought was rich or flashy, and it would carry cash on them everywhere they went, and they preyed on him. I think she loved him more than she ever would explain, and would have done anything Lydell wanted her to do. And that includes setting up other men to be robbed. I wonder how many times that they did this. How many times did they set up a man, being an attractive young female, meet somebody at a party, lure them here or lure them somewhere, and were successfully able to rob them of a few $100, and didn't lead to someone's death. A lot of times, a lot of crimes aren't reported to the police. Sometimes victims feel like there's going to be retaliation if they do report it. Sometimes victims are just scared to tell what happened. I wish I could find out what and how many times Miss Horton, Miss Sumter, and Mr. Sparks had been involved in this before.
She fell for this bad boy, and they had this long on-again, off-again relationship. But she could not leave him for good. She kept coming back and could not say no to him, no matter what he asked her to do. And now she's paying the price.
Social media can be a wonderful way to meet new people. But many use it to create a facade, a false space behind which they hide their bad intent. And oftentimes, innocent victims have little chance to discern someone's true motives until it is too late.
To protect and serve. It's a sacred vow, not one to be taken lightly. There's no one more important to uphold this vow for than the ones you love. You'll do anything to keep them safe. But what if in your quest to protect your loved ones, you lose yourself and become entangled on the other side?
Si estás viendo el directo, me dejas ganar, por favor. Por favor, Juliancito. Sí, Osvaldito, todos los días hacemos directo, chiquillo, ¿vale? Lo hago más tempranito, pero sí, últimamente he estado grabando tarde, no sé por qué. ¿Qué oportunidad tuviste perdida? Ay, no me regañen, no me regañen. Ay, Juliancito, please. Estaba a la vista, ojo.